Welcome to this week's edition of World Crisis Radio. This is Webster Tarpley here in Washington, D.C., and we've had a tumultuous week around the world. I would call your attention to tarpley.net. Two major essays up this week and one clip from Russia Today. The first is the response to the Tunisian events, to the overthrow of the Tunisian President Ben Ali, starting above all from revelations in WikiLeaks. The thing that detonated this for many in the Tunisian middle class were some revelations, allegedly in State Department cables, and again, we never know whether these are real State Department cables or whether they've been doctored for WikiLeaks to then release them. There's no guarantee of the authenticity of any of this stuff. Nobody seems to think of that, but I, of course, do, and I hope you will too. The Tunisian WikiLeaks putsch, that's the title of the essay. The CIA now attempting a Mediterranean tsunami of coups, destabilization, putsches, people power revolutions, and so forth. That's the first essay. That's from earlier this week. I think it's the 17th or 18th of January. And then, overnight here, we have Nihilists of the World Unite. WikiLeaks is the cognitive infiltration demanded by Cass Sunstein, the totalitarian now ensconced in the Obama White House. That's dated January 20th. And along with that goes an interview with Russia Today about some of the alleged WikiLeaks cables from the U.S. Embassy in Moscow, detailing a meeting of the lightweight hack Mike McFaul, the current director of Russian affairs in the National Security Council, meeting with a gaggle of Russian oppositionists. And what I think emerges from this is, in spite of frictions between the two groups and the demands of the Russian dissidents to do more and give them more money, obviously, and other things, that McFaul, who was a big fan of the Orange Revolution in Ukraine back in 2004, was very clearly grooming a certain Boris Nemtsov, to be an attempted unity candidate of this gaggle of all kinds of creatures to run against Putin in 2012, because the U.S. assumes that Putin will try to make a comeback. So those are the two things up on tarpley.net. Please catch up with them. They provide the detailed background for the stuff we're going to talk about today. The reality in Washington right now is that as a result of the fall of Ben Ali's flight into Saudi Arabia 1 week ago almost, we have in the White House National Security Council, in the State Department, in the CIA, and elsewhere, a manic fit which assumes now that because of the success of the WikiLeaks method in Tunisia, it will be possible, they believe it will be, whether it's true or not is another story, that it will be possible to overthrow, or at least to seriously weaken, the governments of a whole series of countries, the monarchy of Morocco, the government of Algeria, where Boumediene is trying to engineer a succession inside his own family, Libya, where Colonel Gaddafi is attempting to engineer a monarchical succession, giving power to his own son, above all Egypt, where Mubarak is also trying to engineer a monarchical succession, transferring power to his own son. In Syria, where the Assad dynasty has now been around for 30 years, where the monarchical succession took place a couple of years ago, but the CIA now and the State Department believe that thanks to this WikiLeaks Assange model, they'll be able to overthrow or at least weaken and destabilize these governments. It might even go all the way to Saudi Arabia. Why not? Wouldn't it be better to deal with a weakened regime there? And so forth, to the various emirates of the Gulf and far beyond. Italy, obviously, under heavy Anglo-American attack this week with a huge operation against Berlusconi, new attempts to drag him to court, to search his offices, despite the fact that he has won another vote of confidence from the parliament by a relatively comfortable 20-vote margin. This is now a dangerous situation because the manic fit in Langley, Foggy Bottom, and the old executive office building is such that some kinds of flight forward may be attempted. The obvious ones are the big ones, Russia and China. Is there any hope for a color revolution, for a CIA people power coup, postmodern putsch, people power revolution in any of these superpowers? That remains to be seen, but there is a danger now that the people in the U.S. intelligence community are really feeling their oats, at least for the moment, and they think that the sky's the limit. Now, if we look at these countries, of course, Mubarak has been in power for about 30 years. He wants his son to succeed him. In Syria, as we said, the Assad dynasty has been there for 30 years, and there's already been a monarchical transition there. Gaddafi has been in power for about 40 years in Libya, depending on when you want to count the beginning of the dictatorship. He's trying to pass it off to his son. Boumediene in Algeria, another case. As far as Tunisia is concerned, we want to talk specifically about the problems of Tunisia in a minute, but the big thing is the international significance of Tunisia. And it is now that the people at the State Department and the CIA believe that the model of the color revolution has now been resuscitated, brought back to life, and refurbished. Their problem was, of course, that because of a widespread awareness of how color revolutions work, and certainly my book, Obama the Postmodern Coup, The Making of a Manchurian Candidate, with a detailed chapter about how color revolutions are done, contributed by the very fine writer Jonathan Mawat, has contributed to an awareness of how this works. And once you had the Ukrainian coup in 2004, you had the Chinese government making a formal statement that they would never allow a color revolution, and everybody else in the world trying to do the same thing. The result has been now that the color revolution model failed in Iran in June, July of 2009. There was supposed to be a color revolution. It failed. Where you are dealing with a government that has any kind of organized base and can fight back at that level also through cyber self-defense by blocking the various U.S. intelligence community-controlled websites, Google, Facebook, Twitter, and so forth, it is very hard to complete a successful color revolution. So the failure in Iran had been demoralizing the entire color revolution apparatus. And, of course, the failure in Iran came on the heels of a similar failure in Lebanon back in 2005, which was again due to the fact that here there was a substantial organized presence, and that happened to be Hezbollah with its mass organizations, its mass base, was able to successfully beat back the Cedars revolution at that point, which was popular among the wealthier Maronite youth of Beirut. That didn't work. They were able to drive the Syrian forces out, but the full success that they wanted was to deny them. Then, of course, you have that the color revolution had been rolled back in Ukraine with the ouster of Timoshenko, Yushchenko, the IMF, CIA kleptocrats, and Georgia, of course, a fascist madman, Saakashvili. We'll be back in just a minute.